Yeah, brief is the word that comes to mind. By our calculations, Mr Sogavare is only going to be on the ground here for 6 or 7 hours. Now, there are probably several reasons for that, but it's hard not to hold the suspicion that one of those reasons might be a desire on Mr Sogavare's part to avoid roving packs of camera operators and journalists who, should he stay overnight in the capital, might try and stake out his hotel. So Mr Sogavare is not spending the night here in Canberra, arriving mid-afternoon, having dinner with Mr Albanese at the lodge, then hopping on a flight back to Brisbane before going back to Solomon Islands to Honiara tomorrow morning. Now, it could be that logistics have as much to do with this than anything else, but it's hard to escape the feeling that Mr Sogavare wasn't very keen to spend awful amounts of time on the ground here in Canberra.
Well, the Prime Minister, Mr Albanese, has been very keen to try and reset this relationship. Was much said after the meeting today?
Look, a joint statement was issued after the meeting. Unfortunately, there was no joint press conference, but that's not hugely surprising, again, given Mr Sogavare's well-known attitude and hostility towards the Australian press. But the two leaders did make fairly extensive opening remarks, sort of 5 minutes each, at the beginning of the meeting, which does give us some sense of what was discussed and the way that the two leaders are keen to present themselves and the main issues at play. Now, Mr Sogavare was very keen to once again take the opportunity to publicly reassure Mr Albanese on the China-Solomon Islands Security Pact. As we know, there's great anxiety in Canberra still today about the fact that this pact was struck between the two countries, anxieties that in the future China might try to set up a military presence of some description in the country, or that if there's future unrest, Chinese troops or soldiers or police might be invited into the country to help re-establish order. All of these present really difficult questions on the security front to Australia. But Mr Sogavare has repeatedly said in Parliament and to the media that he has no intention of ever allowing any foreign country to set up a military base in the country, and he seemed very keen to make the same point to Mr Albanese's face with the cameras rolling today, saying that he would do nothing to jeopardise the security of Solomon Islands citizens or of the region as a whole. Now, the other topic, of course, that's been hugely contentious is Australia's offer to help fund elections that were due to be held in 2023. They've now been pushed back to 2024. Mr Sogavare says that was necessary because they were going to clash with the Pacific Games next year. Now, you might remember when Australia made this offer to help fund the elections while this issue was being debated in Solomon Islands Parliament, Mr Sogavare responded furiously, lashing out at Australia and accusing it of foreign interference, then accepting the offer but mocking Australia, saying that it was going to cost a huge amount of money and that Australia better get ready to pay up. But his tone at the meeting this morning was radically different. He simply, with a very straight face, thanked Australia for its kind offer to fund the elections and said they would now work through how it would be implemented. So a very different tone from Mr Sogavare, who is known for being a bit of a chameleon. One week berating Australia, the next week praising it to the skies.
Yeah. It also follows the Solomons signing up to this pact with the United States, who are also, of course, keen to counter China's rise in the region. Do you think we're going to see a shift in relations, or will Mr Sogavare continue to play off both sides?
Look, Mr Sogavare is a very mercurial leader, but he is also not silly by any stretch of the imagination, and he's proven himself to be an adept political player over the years. And of course, what he has done with his recent plays with China is that he's managed to extract a lot from both sides, from Australia, the United States, and from China. And as Mr Sogavare says, the needs of Solomon Islands are great. So I don't think we're going to see any change in tactics. The anxiety in Solomon Islands, of course, is that Mr Sogavare isn't really in control of this, that is striking agreements that, even if they don't lead to a Chinese security presence immediately, could well lead to one down the track, that is entrenching Chinese influence in the country, and in particular using Chinese influence and money to entrench his own political position, with potentially catastrophic consequences for Solomon Islands down the track. But Mr Sogavare seems to see it as a necessary play. And look, to be fair, it has allowed him to extract enormous amounts of money from all the major players. Given he's had some success in that regard, I can't see why he would do anything to change tactics. I think it's very, very likely that he's going to continue to play both sides off the middle in the hope that he can then maximise the economic benefits for Solomon Islands and also the development benefits for Solomon Islands. I think it would be a mistake for Australian officials to regard the somewhat warmer rhetoric from Mr Sogavare today as any sort of signal of a profound shift. He's going to continue to build closer ties with China, and that will include security ties with China, even if, as he says, a military base remains completely off the table. That's an uncomfortable reality that Australia's going to have to grapple with, but you don't get the sense that Mr Sogavare is for turning on this point either.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Good to get that update, Stephen. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Beverly. Appreciate it.